2 Sundays ago, the people of a Texas church were rocked by something that seems absolutely impossible in a house of God. It was described by onlookers as crazy and violent. A mentally ill man fatally kills a deacon and wounds an usher before being killed himself. Now, reportedly, this whole thing only takes about 6 seconds. And it's barely a spot on the radar screen of life. And yet 2 lives are ended that day, and scores of others are changed as well in the wake of it. This is the stuff of nightmares. It's another one of those headlines that can challenge our worldview, making us wonder what kind of world we live in. Is the universe for us, or is the universe against us? Or is it just neutral? It doesn't care. For people of faith, these are not questions about the universe or a worldview. They're questions about the loving nature of God. These questions are not limited to just the events of headline news either. Theologians call this problem theodicy. How do we reconcile the concept of a loving God with the existence of evil? If we look in the painful places of our life, we'll see that there is an unseen struggle between good and evil. You all know these places too. One day your life's on track, and then boom, all of a sudden something changes. Everything changes. And we stand there looking at our world, unable to figure out what happened. We could name each of these events where our lives have been forever changed. Sometimes we talk about them, but still more often they stay deep buried in our heart, covered by scar tissue of taking each day as it comes. And either way, the memories of these traumas can trigger fear, anxiety, even panic. And so we're forced to ask the question, is God really on our side? It also bears mentioning that at times Christianity has not done a really good job of teaching its followers. Too many people have been taught and bought into the idea that Christianity is about learning how to be good, kind of like some sort of self-help thing, or at least becoming a little better version of ourselves. Still others taught that humans were so totally depraved. For those of you who probably grew up in Calvinist congregations, you probably have heard this. In truth, we human beings are given choice. Free will. We can choose to pray to our worst, or we can learn to use our faith to our best. Well, today we celebrate the day when Jesus presents himself as a candidate for baptism. We're on the banks of the Jordan this morning. In the baptism of Jesus, God has chosen sides. He is not indifferent to the plight of human beings. God has chosen us, picked us, sided with us. God did so with full knowledge of who we are, of our sinful nature, and nonetheless chose us in order to transform us into what we could never transform ourselves into being. The baptism of Jesus is about God's solidarity with his people. It's not so much about our sinfulness. We teach, when we say the Nicene Creed, that we believe in one baptism for the forgiveness of sins. Let's flesh it out. We say that we live into our baptism, not baptisms. See the subtle difference? It's because we're all in this together. There's an old tradition that says that if water is taken from the Jordan River, it doesn't need to be blessed before a baptism. And this is because of the holiness of the Lord's own baptism. It symbolizes a new take on how God really deals with human beings. According to the law, we had to purify ourselves with all of these ritual purifications to deal with the problem of sin over and over and over again. But in this baptism, Jesus is sanctifying us who share in that baptism so we can leave this crazy cycle of thinking we've got to do something. The truth is, we can't. We can't merit being clean. We can't merit being forgiven. It's the gift of God. The epiphany of this story is this. As Jesus came up from the water, the heavens opened, the Spirit of God descends like a dove, and the voice proclaims, "This is my Son, the beloved. in whom I am well pleased. It is the Father's own recognition and acknowledgement that all righteousness is being fulfilled, that all righteousness is the joining together of earth and heaven, just as he is joining together divinity and humanity. Jesus is for us and with us, and one more step in the path of doing exactly what Jesus taught us to pray. Let it be on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus gives us the assurance that we can trust God to be on our side and present with us, standing with us among the rubble of our lives. It means we can trust that God is for us and that God will offer us a path ahead. Jesus' incarnation did nothing less than stoop down into our messed up mortal life and give us a hope and a path forward. It's from his stooping to our level and bringing the sanctity of God to broken human beings like you and I that we can see and acknowledge what is good and holy and special. And so, yes, my heart goes out for those people who died in Texas, for their families who are afflicted, and for all those who deal with senseless acts of violence, even in our own churches. And this I know, God is still very much for us. For us. He simply wants us to step into the waters with him as he was willing to step into ours. Indeed, he, through whom all things were made, knew this was the only way to perceive and to get into a divine life